The third temple has finally been built, but now something terrible happens. Hello, welcome to our channel. Did you know that this is the map of Israel moving away? We arrived to Jerusalem, one of the most popular places in thousands of years of human history. The city of Jerusalem has been a sacred place for three of the most popular religions in the world: Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. The New Testament describes several significant events in the life of Jesus that occurred within the closure of the Second Temple and the Qumran. Another Muslim text specifically mentioned the temple and the great sanctity of the mount where it was located. If you want to know this and much more, I invite you to join us today to discover the secrets hidden in the Bible that have left the scientific community surprised. So, let's get started. They say that the Prophet Muhammad began his night journey to heaven from this location in the 7th century. The adherents of the first two fervently expect something special to happen in Jerusalem, the reconstruction of the temple. This would be the third temple to be built on the site. It will not be an easy journey thanks to the multiple problems that have appeared. According to the Hebrew Bible, in version 5 of chapter 5 of 1 Kings, speaks that King Solomon built the first temple in the 10th century BC. However, the sanctity of the site goes back hundreds, if not thousands of years. The land on which Solomon built the temple had been purchased by his father King David, who intended to build a great temple himself. In the biblical story, God rejected David's ambition because of the king's sins. David shows that an era was associated with Moriah, where Abraham's son Isaac was sacrificed on the mountain, also known as Zion. In the Bible, a name that eventually came to compass the entire land of Israel. This is another tradition shared by all three major monotheistic religions. Other than that and some minor references to the site in the Bible, there is no obvious reason why Solomon built his temple here. What is it? What is clear is that the temple was intended to be a permanent home of the Ark of the Covenant, or Aaron Hamrit, which contained the stone tablets of the law that Moses received at Mount Sinai, and traveled with the Israelites during their wilderness journey. The temple would be the home of their God, who would be represented in idol form among pagan people. The Israelites initially thought of the temple as the literal residence of God, but God's presence was intangible at best, a type of radiance called kavod in Hebrew. As perceptions of God and the people evolved from being a local national deity with an address that needed to be appeased to being universal and omnipresent. The sanctuary evolved from being a place where God lived to being a place where people came to offer service to God in the form of sacrifices. The temple was intended to serve as a unique facility for the united monarchy where sacrifices to God would be performed, and the presence of God was said to dwell in the most holy place, an elaborate chamber in the innermost temple sanctuary. However, Solomon's temple was attacked by several foreign powers before being completely destroyed by the army of Nebuchadnezzar, the king of Babylon. The king of Babylon in 586 BC, the people of Judea were forced into a brief exile in present-day Iraq. Subscribe to our channel so you'll be kept up to date with our new videos. Now, let's continue with the video. However, beginning in 538 after the fall of Babylon, the Persian Emperor Cyrus the Great allowed the Jews to return to the land of Israel. In 515 BC, a temple was rebuilt, dedicated a little-known precursor to the great structure known as the Temple of Herod, a reconstruction to fulfill multiple prophecies. The Second Temple was an expanded and significantly improved structure led by the half-Jewish, half-Dumian Herod, the appointed Roman king of Judea, who died in 4 BC. The extravagant building stood for less than a century and was completed around 20 BC. The first Jewish revolt began in 66 AD and in 70 AD. Later, Emperor Titus sacked and razed the temple after the destruction of the Second Temple during the First Revolt. In the subsequent destruction of Jerusalem, accompanied by the exile of its inhabitants during the Second Jewish Revolt in 132 to 135, Judaism changed dramatically. From a temple-based cult that depended on daily sacrifices to their god, evolved into a mobile faith center on law and prayer. Its adherents spread rapidly throughout the Mediterranean as they became physically oriented towards Jerusalem. Animal sacrifices were replaced by prayers. However, Jews continued to mourn the destruction of the temple, particularly on the Bar Tisha of the day. Traditionally associated with the destruction of the First and Second Temples, as well as other disasters that befell the people. The question is, will the temple be rebuilt again? Pointing to some prophecies found in the Bible, many people believe that a third temple will rise in Jerusalem, and here are some of those prophecies. The first is found in Amos, chapter 9, verse 14 and 15, which says, "I will bring back my exiled people. Israel will rebuild the ruined cities and dwell in them. They will plant vineyards and drink their wine. They will make gardens and eat their fruit. I will plant Israel in their own land, never again to be uprooted from the land I have given them. And yet many skeptics around the world believe that God rejected the people of Israel, and that Israel has been reborn only by men. However, the Bible teaches that God never intended to abandon his people forever. According to the interpretation of some prophecies, such as Isaiah chapter 41, verse 9, which states, "You, Israel, my servant Jacob, whom I have chosen as a descendant of Abraham, my friend. You, whom I took from the ends of the earth and called from its remotest parts, and said to you, you are my servant. I have chosen you and will not reject you." Another prophecy about the scattered nation of Israel returning to the promised land in Isaiah chapter 3 verses 5 and 6, which says, "Fear not, for I am with thee. I will bring thy seed from the east and gather thee from the west. And I will say to the north, leave them, and to the south, do not detain them. Bring my sons from afar and my daughters from the ends of the earth." But why would the Jews want to rebuild another temple? Well, we must turn to Rabbi Moses Maimonides, a Jewish philosopher and Torah scholar, who wrote about the importance of the temple for Jews. He stated that the laws of God's chosen house was that the temple served two functions. The first function is to reveal the divine presence of God who dwelt among the mercy seat of the Ark of the Covenant to mankind, as stated in the second chapter of Kings, verse 25 and 22, which says, "I will meet with you there above the covering between the two cherubim that are upon the Ark of Testimony, and I will give you all my commandments for the Israelites." The second function is to make it easier to make the necessary sacrifices. However, since the destruction of the Second Temple in 70 AD, the Jewish people have been unable to offer these sacrifices. In fact, 202 of the 613 mitzvatel Torah commandments cannot be fulfilled in the absence of a temple without a temple in Jerusalem. Jews now worship the God of their Israel in their local community synagogues, and through Torah studies and instead of animal sacrifices now offer prayer, repentance and charity so that the bodies rebuilding the temple for political reasons, the country of Israel can shirk the responsibility. In fact, Israeli law prohibits Jews from praying at the site, such as the women in black who keep a constant vigil over the Jewish presence at the site. In addition, Islamic authorities officially deny the existence of a temple on the site. However, there are movements or groups that are preparing for construction. One of them being the Temple Movement, which began preparations in 1987. The Temple movements are by Jewish leaders who believe that the Jewish people are not living in the spiritual level that God intended due to the absence of the divine Shekinah presence in the world. The Temple Institute has produced all the necessary rituals for the function and works of the temple to train the priests for this future work. There is a connection between the need for a new level of spiritual attainment and the rebuilding of the temple. The organization believes that the Shekinah is achieved only through the temple, and that only rebuilding will solve the current problems of both the world and the Jewish people. Anyway, we have reached the end of the video. Please like and subscribe if you haven't done it yet. Leave us your opinion in the comment box so we know what you think.